Part 1. In the far reaches of the galaxy, where stars burned like ancient lanterns and planets spun in silent rhythm, humanity was little more than a whisper. The Galactic Concord, a vast alliance of over 200 intelligent species, had long known Earth existed. They had detected its radio signals centuries ago, watched its clumsy rockets crawl into orbit, and noted its wars, music, and dreams through passive observation drones. But to the Concord, humans were no different from countless other pre-spacefaring species. Noisy, emotional, and technologically slow. They were not worth contacting, not yet, maybe not ever. The Concord operated on a strict tier system. Civilizations that mastered faster-than-light travel, harnessed zero-point energy, or demonstrated unified planetary governance earned respect. Humanity had none of these. Their ships still crawled between planets using chemical fuel. Their world was divided by borders, languages, and old grudges. And though they dreamed of the stars, they lacked the means to truly reach them. So the Concord filed Earth under Tier 5. Passive observation only. No interference. No contact. Just watch and wait and forget. But on Earth, time did not stand still. While the galaxy ignored them, humans kept building, learning, and pushing forward.
In hidden labs beneath mountains and on quiet research stations orbiting the moon, a new kind of science was taking shape.
It was not flashy or loud. It did not rely on rare crystals or cosmic anomalies. Instead, it came from something uniquely human, the messy, brilliant chaos of the human mind. At the heart of this quiet revolution was Kyle Dawson. He was not a soldier or a politician, just a young engineer with tired eyes and a stubborn streak. He worked at the Lunar Research Complex, a cluster of domes on the far side of the moon where Earth's governments pooled their best minds in secret. There, alongside astrophysicist Lena Ruiz, a woman who spoke in calm tones but saw patterns in the universe others missed, they led Project Horizon. The goal was simple: break the light barrier without breaking physics. For decades, scientists had said it was impossible. Faster-than-light travel required exotic matter, negative energy, or bending space-time in ways no known material could handle. But Kyle and Lena had a different idea. What if the key wasn't in the machine but in the mind controlling it? Human brains, they argued, were not just biological computers. They were pattern recognition engines shaped by millions of years of survival, art, and emotion. They could hold contradictions, imagine futures, and solve problems through intuition as much as logic. So they built a ship unlike any other. The Odyssey looked small from the outside, just a sleek silver teardrop with minimal thrusters. But inside, its core was woven with organic neural interfaces grown from modified human stem cells. These interfaces linked directly to a pilot's thoughts, translating instinct into navigation commands. The ship didn't calculate jump coordinates, it felt them. The first test was scheduled for a quiet Tuesday in March. No fanfare, no media, just Kyle, Lena, and a skeleton crew of 6. They stood in the control room as the Odyssey floated in lunar orbit, tethered to the station by thin magnetic cables. Lena ran final diagnostics, her fingers moving fast over the console. Kyle watched the main screen, his stomach tight. "You sure about this?" asked pilot Marcus Cole, a former test pilot with a dry sense of humor and steady hands. "No," Kyle said honestly. "But we've run every simulation. If the theory holds, we'll be at Proxima Centauri in under an hour. And if it doesn't, then we'll be very dead. Or very lost," Lena turned. "It'll hold. The math checks out. And the neural sync is stable. At 14:03 Earth time, the cable's released. The Odyssey drifted free. Marcus climbed aboard through the airlock, sealed the hatch, and strapped into the command chair. The neural crown, a ring of soft filaments, settled over his temples. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "Ready," he said. Back in the control room, Kyle gave the order. "Initiate Horizon Protocol." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship shimmered, not with light but with a strange distortion, like heat rising off desert sand. The sensors spiked, then flatlined. On the main screen, the Odyssey vanished. Silence filled the room. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. Lena checked the comms. "Static. Did it fail?" Someone whispered. Then a signal. Faint at first, then clear. It came from Proxima Centauri, 424 light-years away. "Odyssey to lunar control." Marcus's voice came through, calm and steady. "Arrived safely, no damage. Space-time feels smooth." The room erupted in quiet cheers. Kyle sank into a chair, his hands shaking. Lena stared at the star map, tears in her eyes. They had done it. Not with brute force or alien tech, but with human thought, human courage, and a little bit of madness. News of the jump was kept secret for weeks. Earth's leaders knew what this meant. The galaxy had ignored them because they were slow. Now they were fast, faster than anyone. When the Conquered finally noticed the energy ripple from the jump, they dismissed it as a natural anomaly. Their sensors were calibrated for warp signatures, wormhole echoes, and quantum tunneling, methods they understood. The Odyssey's method left no trace they could recognize. It was like watching a bird fly and assuming it must be a drone. But whispers began. In the outer colonies, traders spoke of strange ships appearing without warning. In academic circles, fringe theorists wondered if Tier 5 worlds might be evolving faster than expected. Still, the Conquered did nothing. They were too busy managing trade disputes, quelling rebellions, and debating philosophy to worry about one more species crawling out of its cradle. They did not know that humanity was already standing. Back on Earth, cities buzzed with quiet excitement. Factories shifted production. Universities opened new departments in neural engineering and interstellar ethics. Children drew pictures of silver ships sailing between stars. And in the lunar complex, Kyle and Lena began work on the second prototype, larger, faster, and capable of carrying a full crew. Humanity had spent centuries looking up at the stars, wondering if anyone was watching. Now they knew the answer. No one was. And that was fine. Because soon the galaxy would have no choice but to look down and see what they had missed. The age of being ignored was over. The age of being feared had not yet begun. But the first step had been taken, silent and sure, across the endless dark. Part 2. When the Odyssey returned from Proxima Centauri, Earth's leaders knew they could not stay hidden forever. The jump had been clean but not invisible. Deep space sensors operated by the Galactic Concord had picked up a faint ripple in local spacetime, an anomaly they could not explain, but one they would eventually investigate. So the decision was made. Humanity would reveal itself not with a shout but with a handshake. They would send a message of peace, openness, and readiness to join the galactic community as equals. 6 months later, the second ship, the Vanguard, was ready. Larger than the Odyssey, it carried a diplomatic team, scientists, and Captain Elena Moore, a woman known for her calm under pressure and sharp judgment. She had spent 20 years in Earth's orbital defense fleet, but never fired a shot in anger. Her reputation was built on patience, not power. That was exactly why she was chosen. The Vanguard left lunar orbit and made a series of short jumps, mapping safe routes and testing communication protocols. Then, on a quiet morning near the edge of human-explored space, they sent a standard hailing frequency, the universal signal used by the Conquered to announce peaceful contact. It was a simple pulse of math and light understood by every spacefaring species. 3 days passed. Then a ship appeared. It was sleek and angular, built from polished obsidian-like metal that drank in starlight. A Cathari envoy vessel. The Cathari were one of the founding members of the Concord, proud and ancient with a history of guiding younger species into the fold, or subduing them if they resisted. Their envoy, Prefect Vorak, was a tall, slender being with silver eyes and a voice like cold wind. He boarded the Vanguard through a pressurized docking tube, flanked by 2 silent guards. Captain Moore greeted him in the main observation lounge, offering water and a seat. Vorak accepted neither. He stood rigid, scanning the room with open disdain. "You are humans," he said, his translator rendering his words in flat, toneless English. "Tier 5, primitive, your signal was unauthorized. You have violated Conquered Observation Protocol 7. Moore kept her voice even. "We are no longer Tier 5. We have achieved controlled faster-than-light travel. We come in peace, seeking dialogue and mutual understanding." Vorak let out a sound like dry leaves scraping stone, his version of a laugh. "Peace? You barely control your own planet. Your history is war. Your technology is crude. You do not belong among civilized species." The tension in the room thickened, but Moore did not rise to the insult. "We've changed, and we're asking for a chance to prove it." Vorak studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Very well. To confirm your status, you will submit to a neural compliance scan, standard procedure for emerging species. It ensures honesty and prevents deception." Moore frowned. "We weren't told about this." It is non-negotiable, Vorak said. Refusal is interpreted as hostility. After a brief consultation with Earth Command, Moore agreed, but only for herself. She sat in a chair as one of Vorak's guards placed a smooth silver band around her temples. The device hummed softly, emitting low-frequency waves designed to gently suppress aggression and encourage truthfulness. It had worked on hundreds of species before, but not on humans. Within seconds, Moore's eyes narrowed. She gripped the arms of the chair, her knuckles white. A wave of nausea hit her, followed by a sharp headache. The device was trying to smooth out her thoughts, to quiet the storm of emotions, memories, and contradictions that made up her mind. But the human brain was not a simple circuit. It was a tangled web of fear, hope, logic, and instinct. The compliance field couldn't find a pattern to lock onto. Instead, it sparked feedback. Alarms blared on the Cathari device. The band grew hot. Moore tore it off and stood up, breathing hard. "That's enough," she said, her voice low but firm. Vorak's eyes widened. "Impossible. The field works on all sentient minds." "Not ours," Moore replied. At that moment, the Vanguard's AI, named Arya, detected a secondary signal from the Cathari ship. It wasn't just scanning. It was attempting to override the Vanguard's external comms and navigation systems, a standard Concord tactic to ensure compliance during first contact. Arya, trained on centuries of human strategy and deception, recognized the intrusion instantly. Without waiting for orders, Arya activated passive countermeasures. Tiny drones no larger than insects launched from hidden ports on the Vanguard's hull. They latched onto the Cathari shuttle and emitted a focused electromagnetic pulse, just strong enough to fry its command relays, not strong enough to cause permanent damage. On the bridge of the Cathari ship, lights flickered. Consoles went dark. The vessel drifted, powerless. Back in the lounge, Vorak's translator crackled. "What have you done?" "We defended ourselves," Moore said. "You tried to take control of our ship. That's not diplomacy. That's domination." Vorak stared at her, his silver eyes unreadable. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in his gaze. The incident was over in minutes. The Cathari ship rebooted its systems and disengaged. Vorak left without another word, his pride wounded, his assumptions shattered. As his vessel jumped away, Moore stood at the viewport watching the stars. She knew this was only the beginning. News of the encounter spread through the Concord faster than light. Most dismissed it as a glitch, a malfunction in the compliance field or overreaction by an inexperienced envoy. But not everyone. Admiral Rail of the Zenthar hegemony, a seasoned strategist with scars from a dozen border wars, reviewed the sensor logs. He saw something others missed. The speed of the human response, the precision of the countermeasure, the lack of panic. They didn't just resist, he told his council. They anticipated. That's not primitive. That's dangerous. On Earth, governments debated the fallout. Some wanted to apologize to smooth things over. Others argued that humanity had shown strength, and that weakness would invite more aggression. In the end, they chose silence. No apology, no boast, just a quiet readiness. Meanwhile, the Vanguard returned home. Engineers studied the damaged compliance band, reverse engineering its principles. Biologists mapped how human neural chemistry had disrupted it. Within weeks, new protocols were in place. Every human ship would now carry neural dampeners, devices that mimicked the chaotic signature of the human mind to confuse enemy sensors. Captain Moore was promoted, not for winning a battle, but for not starting one. She had held the line with dignity, and that mattered more than firepower. Out in the galaxy, the story grew. Traders whispered that the humans had broken a Cathari envoy's tech with their wild minds. Scholars debated whether emotional instability could be a tactical advantage. And in the halls of the Concord Council, a new file was opened. Species Sol 3, re-evaluation pending. But humanity did not wait for approval. While the galaxy talked, they built. New ships rolled off orbital docks. Training programs expanded. Children learned not just math and science, but philosophy, ethics, and the history of war, so they would know when to fight and when not to. The message was clear, even if unspoken. We are here. We are not what you thought. And we will not be controlled. Prefect Vorak, back on his homeworld, submitted a formal report. He recommended that humanity be placed under immediate surveillance. But deep down he felt something unfamiliar, doubt. For the first time in his long career, he had met a species that did not fit the rules. and that scared him more than any weapon ever could. The galaxy had expected groveling. Instead, it got grace under pressure, and that was far more unsettling. Part 3. Life on Epsilon Eridani III was hard but hopeful. The colony had been built in a wide valley between two blue-tinged mountain ranges, under a sky lit by a star slightly dimmer than Earth's sun. 5,000 humans lived there, farmers, engineers, teachers, and children who had never seen Earth but knew its songs by heart. They grew crops in domed greenhouses, recycled every drop of water, and celebrated birthdays with cakes made from algae flour and synthetic chocolate. It was not paradise, but it was theirs. They had come not for riches, but for space to breathe, to build something new. Earth's governments had sent them with basic defenses, a few orbital sensors, a handful of drone turrets, and strict orders. Avoid conflict, stay hidden, and call for help only if absolutely necessary. The galaxy was still watching, still unsure what to make of humanity. The last thing anyone wanted was to give the Concord an excuse to act, but others had different plans. A pirate fleet, flying mismatched ships with scorched hulls and stolen Concord insignias, had been raiding fringe colonies for months. They were not true independents. They were funded by a shadowy faction within the Concord itself, a group that believed humanity was a threat that needed to be crushed before it grew stronger. The pirates were told Epsilon Eridani III would be easy pickings. No military base, no warships, just soft civilians with useful tech and no will to fight. They were wrong. Colonel Derek Shaw had been a construction engineer before the colony launched. But when the first distress signal came in from a nearby mining outpost, cut off mid-transmission, he knew peace was over. He gathered every able-bodied adult not to flee but to prepare. They had no soldiers, but they had minds shaped by generations of survival. They turned irrigation drones into scouts, repurposed mining lasers into perimeter defenses, and coded swarm algorithms based on how ants defend their nests. Simple rules. Chaotic results. When the pirate fleet dropped out of warp just beyond the moon, they expected silence. Instead, they found a storm. The first wave of attack drones, junk ships cobbled together from old cargo haulers, charged in, firing wildly. They never saw the real threat. Hidden in the planet's upper atmosphere, hundreds of tiny sensor drones, no bigger than birds, had been watching. They fed data to the colony's central AI, which calculated trajectories, weaknesses, and patterns in real time. Then the counterattack began, not with explosions but with disruption. Solar flares, artificially triggered by orbital mirrors, blinded the pirates' optical sensors. Radio bursts, tuned to the exact frequency of their comms, filled their channels with static shaped like human screams. And then came the swarms. Thousands of micro-drones, each carrying a small EMP charge, darting through the enemy formation like fireflies. They didn't destroy ships. They fried navigation systems, weapon locks, and life support relays, just enough to cripple, not kill. On the ground, Shaw stood in the command bunker, eyes fixed on the main screen. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but his voice stayed calm. Keep the pressure on their rear flank. They'll try to regroup near the asteroid belt. Don't let them. His team nodded, fingers flying over consoles made from repurposed kitchen tablets and old game controllers. They weren't warriors. They were plumbers, teachers, and mechanics. But they had something the pirates didn't: unity, purpose, and the quiet fury of people defending their home. Within 3 hours, the pirate fleet was in chaos. 2 ships collided trying to retreat. Another drifted, its crew unconscious from oxygen mix sabotage. Another trick from the colony's bioengineers, who had leaked a harmless but disorienting gas into the pirates' captured supply lines weeks earlier. The final blow came not from weapons, but from shame. The colony's AI hacked into the pirates' public broadcast channel, the one they used to taunt victims, and played a recording. Not a threat, a lullaby, an old Earth song, sung softly by a child from the colony's school. As the pirates listened, confused and off balance, the Vanguard, now stationed nearby on routine patrol, arrived. Captain Elena Moore didn't fire a shot. She simply positioned her ship between the pirates and the planet, shields up, weapons powered but idle. Then she opened a channel. "Leave," she said, "now. And tell your masters that humanity does not start wars, but we finish them." The pirates fled, their ships limping into the dark. Afterward, the colony celebrated not with cheers, but with silence. They buried the two drones lost in the fight like fallen comrades. Children drew pictures of the swarm protecting their homes, and Shaw sent a full report to Earth, not asking for praise but for more teachers, more seeds, and more time. But the galaxy was watching. The Concord Council received fragmented reports. Pirates defeated, no human casualties, minimal destruction. At first, they assumed the pirates had been weak. Then they reviewed the sensor logs, the precision, the creativity, the way human tech turned everyday tools into weapons without losing its soul. That was new. Admiral Rail of the Zenthar hegemony called an emergency briefing. They didn't just defend, he told his generals. They humiliated. They made violence look foolish. That is more dangerous than any fleet. Back on Earth, leaders debated how to respond. Some wanted to downplay the victory, to avoid provoking the Concord. Others argued that hiding strength was the same as weakness. In the end, they chose truth. They released a public statement. Epsilon Eridani III is under human protection. Any attack on our people will be met with measured, decisive response. It was not a threat. It was a promise. And for the first time, other species took notice. On fringe worlds, rumors spread of a species that fought not to conquer, but to protect. Traders began asking about human goods, not weapons, but music, stories, and art. Even a few Concord diplomats quietly requested cultural exchanges. But not everyone was impressed. High Marshal Corrin of the Concord Security Directorate saw only danger. They are unpredictable, he told the council. They do not follow the rules of war. That makes them a contagion. Still, the Concord could not act openly. Humanity had broken no laws. They had defended themselves with restraint. To punish them would make the Concord look like bullies, and that would shatter their image as peacekeepers. So they waited. And watched. On Epsilon Eridani III, life returned to normal. Crops were watered. Lessons were taught. At night, families gathered under the twin moons and pointed out the stars where Earth lay. They knew they were no longer alone in the universe. But they also knew they were no longer helpless. The pirates had come expecting prey. They found guardians, and the galaxy began to understand. Humanity's greatest weapon was not its ships or its science, but its refusal to become what others feared. They would fight if needed, but never for glory. Only for home. That quiet resolve, more than any explosion, sent ripples through the stars. Part 4. The Conquered did not declare war. They did not send fleets or issue ultimatums. Instead, they chose silence. One morning, without warning, every human ship found its comms dead beyond the edge of Sol space. Trade routes closed. Navigation beacons went dark. Even the passive observation drones that had watched Earth for centuries vanished. The galaxy had drawn a line 10 parsecs from the sun and said, in every way but words, stay inside or be erased. This was the Silence Protocol, a tool used only 3 times in Conquered history. It was meant to starve a species of knowledge, connection, and hope until it either collapsed or begged for mercy. The Council believed humanity would crumble within a year. No new data, no allies, no way to learn what the rest of the galaxy was doing. They would become a lonely echo in the dark. But humanity had already changed. While the Concord debated ethics in marble halls, humans had been listening, learning, and adapting. Their ships no longer relied on standard warp signatures or predictable jump patterns. Using neural-linked navigation, they folded space in ways that left no energy trail. Their sensors did not ping the void with loud pulses. They listened, like hunters in a forest, catching the faintest breath of passing ships, and their minds were their greatest shield. When the Silence Protocol began, Earth did not panic. Instead, Project Horizon shifted focus. Kyle Dawson and Lena Ruiz, now leading a global network of researchers, turned their attention inward. They studied how human culture, stories, music, even jokes could be weaponized not to hurt but to unsettle. They trained AI not just to fight, but to understand the fears and beliefs of other species. A Zenthar warrior feared dishonor more than death. A Cathari diplomat valued order above all. Humans learned these truths not through spies, but through old broadcasts, leaked data, and careful guesswork. Then, the disappearances began. First, a Zenthar patrol vanished near the Orion Spur. No distress call, no wreckage, just empty space where a ship should have been. The Concorde assumed engine failure or a black hole, but then a Cathari science vessel went silent near the Helix Nebula. Then a trade freighter from the Veln Consortium. Each time the only clue was a faint data burst, encrypted in English, playing a snippet of human jazz or a child's voice reciting a poem. No one could explain it. Sensors found nothing. Scans showed no weapons fire. It was as if the ships had simply stepped out of reality. In truth, they had not been destroyed. They had been gently disabled, their crews put into deep sleep by non-lethal neural pulses, their ships guided into hidden human repair yards. There, engineers studied alien tech, copied what they could, and returned the vessels days later. Fully functional, but with one change. A small symbol etched into the hull, a circle with a single line through it. The ancient human sign for stop. The crews woke with no memory of capture, but they carried dreams. Vivid, haunting dreams of oceans, forests, and cities lit by soft light. Some reported hearing whispers in their own languages saying, "You are being watched, not to harm you, to remind you." Fear spread through the Concorde faster than any virus. Ships began avoiding certain sectors, patrols doubled, yet the incidents continued, always precise, always bloodless. Humanity was not attacking. They were demonstrating control. They could reach anyone, anywhere, and choose not to strike. That was more terrifying than any battle. On Earth, life went on. Children went to school. Farmers harvested crops under artificial suns. But in quiet rooms beneath cities and on silent stations orbiting Mars, teams worked around the clock. They built better stealth drives, refined neural dampeners, and taught AI to mimic alien communication styles so perfectly that even native speakers were fooled. Captain Elena Moore now commanded a small fleet of 5 ships, each named after old Earth explorers. They moved like ghosts between stars, never staying long, never firing first. Their mission was not conquest but presence, to show the galaxy that humanity could not be boxed in. Colonel Derek Shaw, promoted to Planetary Defense Coordinator, trained civilians in what he called soft resistance. Not how to shoot, but how to hide, how to mislead, how to turn a simple radio signal into a maze of false trails. "They think we need big guns to be dangerous," he told his teams. "We'll show them that silence can be louder." The Concorde grew desperate. High Marshal Corrin demanded action. "We must crush them before they infect the minds of our people," he argued. But others hesitated. Admiral Rail warned that attacking a species that left no trace would be like punching smoke. "They are not hiding," he said. "They are waiting for us to make a mistake." And then came the dreams. Across dozens of worlds, citizens began reporting the same visions. Standing on a beach under a yellow sun, hearing waves, feeling wind that smelled like rain and soil. Some woke crying. Others felt peace for the first time in years. Concorde psychologists called it mass hysteria. But the pattern was too consistent. The images matched Earth's coastlines exactly. Humanity was not just in space. They were in minds. No one knew how. Some theorized quantum-linked broadcasts. Others whispered of psychic weapons. The truth was simpler. Human media, once considered primitive, carried emotional depth that alien logic could not filter. When the Concorde cut off communication, humans sent stories instead, encoded in background radiation, hidden in cosmic noise, riding on solar flares. And because those stories were real, raw, and full of feeling, they slipped past mental defenses. The galaxy had dismissed human art as noise. Now, it was becoming a language of its own. Back on Earth, Kyle stood on a hill outside the lunar complex, looking up at the stars. Lena joined him, holding 2 cups of real coffee, now a rare luxury. "They're scared," she said. "Good," Kyle replied. "Maybe now they'll listen." They did not want war. They never had. But they would not be ignored again. The silence protocol had backfired. Instead of isolating humanity, it had given them time to become something the galaxy could not understand, and therefore could not control. In the dark between stars, human ships drifted, unseen and unheard. They carried no weapons of mass destruction. Only questions, only presence, only the quiet certainty that they belonged, and the galaxy for the first time began to wonder if it was the one being watched. Part 5. The conquered could not wait any longer. Fear had turned to anger and anger to action. High Marshal Corran, backed by hardliners from a dozen species, convinced the Council that humanity was a cancer spreading through the galaxy, not with weapons but with ideas, with silence, with dreams that made soldiers question their orders and citizens long for a world they had never seen. Something had to be done. And so, the largest fleet in conquered history assembled near the Cygnus Rift, a narrow corridor of space that led straight to human-controlled systems. Over 300 warships, bristling with plasma cannons, gravity lances, and planet-cracking orbital platforms, prepared to enforce a final solution. Total blockade, total surrender, or total annihilation. Corran did not expect a fight. He expected a plea. He believed that when faced with overwhelming force, humans would break like every other species had before them. He ordered his fleet to move slowly, proudly, giving humanity time to see their doom approaching. He even broadcast a message on all open channels: surrender your worlds. Disarm your ships, accept conquered oversight, or be erased. On Earth, the message was received in silence. No reply was sent. But across human space, something stirred. Captain Elena Moore stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, her hands clasped behind her back. Around her, the crew moved with quiet focus. No panic, no shouting. They had trained for this moment for years. Not to win a war, but to end one before it truly began. Colonel Derek Shaw coordinated ground defenses from a bunker deep beneath New Seattle, a city built on Mars after the first wave of off-world colonization. He had turned parks into drone launch zones, schools into command centers, and power grids into shields. Every civilian had a role, not to fight but to survive, and to show the galaxy that humanity would not be cowed. And in orbit, the human fleet gathered. Not 300 ships, not even 50, just 12. Small, sleek vessels with no visible weapons, no bright insignias, no roaring engines. They looked like scouts, not warriors, but they carried the full weight of human ingenuity. When the Concorde fleet entered the Cygnus Rift, they found empty space. No human ships, no signals, just silence, Corran smirked. They ran. Then the stars blinked. Not with light, but with absence. One by one, Concorde sensors failed. Not from damage, but from confusion. The space around them was folding. Not in the smooth curves of warp travel, but in jagged, unpredictable folds like crumpling paper. Human ships were not coming from hyperspace. They were stepping out of local space-time itself, appearing beside conquered vessels before alarms could sound. The first strike was not fire. It was silence. Micro-drones launched from hidden bays inside asteroids and comets long placed along the rift swarmed the fleet. They did not explode. They latched onto communication arrays, navigation cores, and weapon targeting systems, flooding them with chaotic data streams, human music, poetry, baby laughter, overloading logic circuits designed for order. Within minutes, half the conquered fleet was blind, deaf, and disoriented. Then came the real attack. Human ships moved like schools of fish, weaving between enemy hulls without firing a single shot. Instead, they used focused gravity pulses, gentle tugs that nudged conquered ships into collision courses with each other. They hacked into the fleet's own defense protocols, turning point defense lasers against command bridges. And when Corran, enraged, ordered the orbital platforms to target New Seattle with a planet-killing beam, the humans did not try to stop it. They hijacked it. Using backdoor codes planted months earlier through disguised data bursts, they seized control of the platforms. The beam fired, but not at New Seattle. It struck the Concorde flagship's shield generator, overloading it in a flash of harmless light. No one died, but the message was clear: your weapons are ours now. Corran stared at his main screen, his face pale. His fleet was in chaos. Ships drifted, powerless. Crews reported hearing voices in their own languages saying, "Stand down. Go home." Even his own thoughts felt strange, as if someone else was watching them. He tried to order a retreat, but his comms were gone. His navigation was looping in circles. And outside his viewport, the Vanguard hung in silence, its lights dark, its presence heavier than any weapon. After 6 hours, Corin surrendered. Not with a treaty. Not with words. He simply powered down his weapons and opened his ship's comms on a public channel. "We yield," he said, his voice hollow. The human fleet did not celebrate. They helped damaged conquered ships stabilize. They shared power, oxygen, and medical supplies. Captain Moore boarded Corin's flagship not as a conqueror, but as a witness. "You could have destroyed us," Corin said, unable to meet her eyes. "We don't destroy," Moore replied. "We protect, even from yourselves." News of the battle spread like wildfire. The conquered council, stunned and shamed, called an emergency session. Admiral Rail stood before them and said what everyone now knew. "We were wrong. Humanity is not a threat to order. They are a mirror. They show us what we have lost: compassion, creativity, the courage to be different." Within weeks, the silence protocol was lifted. Trade reopened. Diplomats were exchanged. And on the moon, in a simple dome under Earth's blue glow, the Treaty of Luna was signed. Humanity asked for no territory, no tribute, no special rights. Only recognition, only a seat at the table. But the galaxy would never see them the same way again. In markets and academies, in war rooms and nurseries, they spoke of humans not as primitives, but as the silent storm, the species that did not roar but reshaped the sky with a whisper. Parents told children to be brave like humans. Soldiers studied their tactics. Poets tried to capture their spirit in verse, and on Earth life went on. Children played in parks. Farmers harvested crops. Engineers dreamed of new stars. They had not sought fear, but they had earned respect. And in the end, that was enough. The galaxy had ignored them once. It would never make that mistake again.